Show me your tints. That wasn't even creative. Hey guys, so recently I got my windows tinted and holy balls, it looks good. You get the idea. It makes the car look meaner, it brings out the lines really well, and it makes the windows look bigger. But is it worth it for you to do on your car? Alright, so before I get to the rest of the video, let's do the splurge. I need to put on a timer. Ready? Like, comment, subscribe, Discord, Instagram, Twitter. I got my Patreon down below, as well as a t-shirt store. Is there anything else? Facebook? Nope. You guys don't have my Facebook. That's creepy. Oh shoot, I guess that's it. I'm really getting sick of the YouTube spiel, and I'm only at 3,000 subscribers, so. Alright, so before we get into it, let's give my car a little backstory about the whole tintage situation. Is that a word? Okay, so my car is a 1970 Buick Skylark, meaning it had pretty much zero tint on it. I say pretty much because I didn't exactly get it checked beforehand, but the front glass seemed just as clear as the side glass and the rear glass, and it didn't look any darker than if the window was rolled down. So no, I don't think I had any tint. This is also because when I looked it up, window tint actually had its start in 1966, but didn't really catch on until the 80s. This is mostly due to the fact that window tint, early window tint, it had a little bit of a problem where it would bubble up constantly, and it would bake you alive. Don't worry, son. Daddy's gonna get some cigarettes, then I'll be right back. Yeah, no. The reason why window tint didn't catch on is because it turned your car around 150 degrees in there because it trapped heat super well. Yeah, no, and since a lot of cars didn't come with AC back then and most people don't like being cooked alive, it really didn't catch on until later. Alright, so without further ado, let's get to the comparison. Let's get to the cons. Okay, so the first con is probably the thing that a lot of people are worried about. With 5% tint at least, you can't see jack at night.
Damn. I can't see fucking shit out of this thing.
Yeah, no, with 20% it's hard enough, but with 5% it's pretty impossible. You know, if there's a kid behind you when you're backing up, you might as well just save yourself the time and just drive straight to the courthouse to get arrested because you're not going to be able to see them. That said, this is not a problem on newer cars that have rear-facing cameras when they back up, and if you're really that concerned about it, you can get a license plate at Costco. Actually, you can get a license plate that has a camera on it, so you can back up just fine. Which for going as dark as 5%, I'd really recommend. 20% actually doesn't have bad visibility, and if you want clear visibility all around your car, I would go 20% because it still gives you the tinted look. but you can still see. 5% is just too dark for most situations. If you get 5% all around, you can say goodbye to parallel parking. That's just going to be really hard and not worth the risk. On top of that, how dark I went, it could be considered illegal depending on where you live. And for pretty good reason, to be perfectly honest. Depending on where you live, cops will have a field day when it comes to your windows. And once they get the windows, they're probably going to be checking for literally everything else. Personally though, the city where I live in doesn't really have a problem. My shop itself, I asked my shop about this where I got it tinted, and they said that typically they don't receive any problems from cops. And I'm pretty inclined to believe them, considering the cost to get my tint 30% versus 5% was exactly the same. So I trust their word on this. If you're going to get tinted though, I'd definitely ask your shop what it's like locally. Another con is for the first few days, you can't roll down your windows, which means if you don't have AC like moi, you're going to be baking a little bit. Granted, you're not going to be baking like they did in the 60s. Yeah, no, the reason behind not being able to roll down the windows is because it's all still setting and it might mess with the sealing process. So for 3 or 4 days, you just don't touch it. But after that, it's fair game. It can also be very hard to see some light at night. And if you're not paying attention, it's possible to get chased by a cop car and not even realize it if your hearing is not the best. You need to be constantly looking at your rear view to see if there's any lights there, because if you don't, and you just do a little glance every now and then, you're not going to notice them, and then you'll be in a whole heap of trouble. Unfortunately, it's kind of hard for the footage to catch this because my camera's auto settings, but just take my word on this. Another con is tint is actually put on the inside of the windows, not the outside. At least from how they described it to me. So any scratches that you have on your window will be shown even more on the black background that is now attached to it, because everything's facing the outside. So if you're going to plan to get your windows tinted, make sure your windows are in tip-top condition, because they're going to be any other flaws are going to be way more obvious. And the final con is it can be a little bit pricey. My tint job wasn't awful. It was around $300, but if you want a very, what's the word I'm looking for? A very particular tint job where they take out the windows and wrap the whole thing, you're going to be looking at around $1,000. All right, enough of that depressing mumbo jumbo. Let's get to the pros. Pro number 1. Car just looks amazing. I'm serious. Every time I look at my car, I just throw every single con out the window. It looks beautiful. If you want your car to look more aggressive, tint is the way to go. I personally got black tint, but you can get different colors, but black tint is the aggressive look. Another pro, despite what I said about old tint, modern tint actually keeps your car cooler during the summer, which means you get a lot less burned body parts. I don't remember exactly where, but I remember my car doesn't have AC, right? And it's an old GM car that had 0% tint, so it was like 120 degrees when you get in there during the summer. I know I have a burn scar somewhere in the body where I touched my seatbelt. But where I touched my seatbelt, and it just left a mark because it was just that hot. But yeah, no, modern tint actually, it bounces sun back. So my car, which had no AC, it's a lot better to be in during the summer. You're not sweating bullets the whole time. Now this is actually, for one, it's finally a safety pro. Window tint cuts down on a ton of glare. As someone that had 0 tint, driving at like sunset and sunrise was the worst. You constantly were dealing with the sun beating down in your vision in all eyes. If it wasn't facing in front of you, it was coming from the left or the right. And if it wasn't coming from the left or the right, it was coming from behind you, bouncing off your rear view directly into your eyes. It was awful. I actually would avoid driving my car at those times. And now I can just do it no problem. It's insane. It's such a huge difference. And honestly, it did make me feel a little bit safer when driving around those times. Now this one is kind of both a pro and a con. With tint, you have to be a lot more careful. Which means if you're one of those people that like does like a quick little half-cheeked shoulder glance when you're switching lanes, you're gonna crash your car. You need to look for like a solid half second, make sure no one's there, and then go. Because window tint, you're not gonna catch anything at a glance. You need to be very, very careful. Now, there's a con, because you have to work a little harder, but it's also a pro because it's forcing you to be a little bit safer. So take that as you will. All right, so let's go over to the summary. So there's a lot of pros. There's sometimes a little bit more cons, but the cons are a little less than the pros. So in my opinion, it is 100% worth it to get your windows tinted, as long as you do it right. At a glance, 20% looks about the same as 5%, and 20% has a lot more visibility at night. So if you're gonna tint your car all the way around, I would highly recommend 20%. Don't go 5% like I did. Because, yeah, it looks cool on really sunny days, but when you basically lose your ability to drive at night, it's not safe to drive with 5% window tint around. You don't have to listen to me, but that's my recommendation. But would I do it all again? Absolutely. My car looks so much better with the tint, and oh gosh, I love it so much. So yeah, that about wraps things up. I hope you guys found this video informative. I hope you guys enjoyed. T-shirt store, Patreon, all the above, yada, yada, yada. I don't know. You guys get the YouTuber spiel by literally everyone on this app, so I'm not going to give it to you guys again. Apparently, I'm going to spend twice as long talking about how I'm not giving the YouTuber spiel and wasting your time more. So, yeah, that wraps up everything. I hope you guys have a great day. Peace.